Now we have had one round of the presentation, interventions. So before coming into the second question, I want to ask your audience your questions, your comments, and also the panelists here can freely intervene. This is a real interaction. You also can speak, they also can speak. Is there anybody? Please tell your name and speak. If not, these guys will start speaking. Yes, please, in the center. Yes, you are the person.
My name is Frank Moramuzi. I'm from Uganda, and I'm happy to see my minister there. I have to say two things. One is that I'm happy with the experts' interventions and knowledge and lessons. But I think, I appreciate, but I think we need to learn also to do things differently. There is one aspect of the population in addressing the issues of disaster management which we are leaving out, are the communities. The minister from Uganda, I think, tried to bring it in, the communities. Where are the communities in all these discussions? I think we need to learn how to bring in the planning and hear what they are saying, what they have learned. For example, even in these discussions, let it not be only high level. High level, if you are talking to ourselves, we need to bring to those people who are being impacted on and see what they have learned, and they have the knowledge to give. I would suggest that next time, bring the communities, those women you are talking about, from the communities who have experienced this. Probably they could give some suggestions on how to deal with those answers. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones to be impacted. That is one. I also liked very much the issue of early warning. And I think we need to learn that as a lesson. And to link some of these disasters with large investments. For example, there are some lessons that have been forgotten. Recently, something happened in the Gulf of Mexico when a large pipeline burst. And then it was not because of those big monies, big experts would not handle. For example, if it happened in Uganda, where we are now having oil being mined in the Lake Albert, if that kind of thing happened in Uganda, would not handle. So we need to have early warning and learn from those other people how they handled those things. We have other experiences in Uganda, for example, some big infrastructure, the dam supported by the World Bank, where they put it in a lake, on a river. And then we had that bad disaster, and it contributed to the dwindling of the Lake Victoria. It was a big, big disaster, but we don't talk about these things. So we need to get those lessons and learn, and then see how we can do better. So to me, those are good things which can say. But I like my minister that now, today, we have started planning with communities. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anybody want to respond? Yes, Mr. Alta.
Yeah, I think it fits actually. Thank you very much, Frank, for your intervention, because I think, in my view at least, it fits very well what you said before. You see, lessons can be learned at very different levels and in very different ways. That's why I'd like to really reiterate, if we want to change approaches, you have to have understood what happened in the past and why it happened as it went. Voices of this kind of evaluation cannot be just a specific part of those that have lived through this disaster. It should be, and I think that's what I mean when I say transparent and honest assessment. That means that everybody had to contribute to this. And if I understand correctly, I mean, certainly there's a lot of demand and there's a lot of questioning at the local level in Japan going on, and there are the mayors, the communities perhaps in a different way, but they are all part of this exercise to understand what are the lessons that we at least felt individually and then they have to be aggregated and somehow to be put into a policy response. But I think this learning from the past has to really include very, very different perspectives, and not just technical, not just financial, and certainly not just political consequences. But to translate that, you need to have, in the end, a way to collect all these experiences. And I think that's what probably would be a very useful task for dealing with what we should answer here, dealing with learning from the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, the gentleman there, yes, you are.
Je voudrais faire part à une expérience vécue au Maroc. Ces dernières années, nous avons souffert des problèmes d'inondation. Les problèmes sont tellement importants qu'il fallait s'organiser pour pouvoir affronter ce problème. Alors, ce qui a été fait, c'est d'abord un inventaire de toutes les possibilités d'occurrence de crues ou d'inondations, pour permettre par la suite de dresser une programmation selon les priorités pour pouvoir agir et optimiser bien entendu et agir selon les priorités. Un constat, c'est que les problèmes ne provenaient pas uniquement des causes naturelles, mais aussi des installations humaines. Beaucoup de problèmes provenaient d'une occupation un peu archaïque, anarchique du domaine public hydraulique. Et les remèdes ne sont pas uniquement structurels, comme cela a été annoncé, mais aussi non structurels, tels que l'annonce du cru, l'organisation des secours. Merci.
Thank you.
Oui, merci. Alain Bonnet, je représente l'ONG humanitaire Solidarité Internationale. Je voudrais parler ici des pays pauvres, confrontés à des conflits ou à des catastrophes naturelles et qui sont peu représentés. Je crois qu'en 2010, on a évalué le nombre de victimes des catastrophes à 250 000. Je voudrais rappeler que, puisqu'on parle de vision intégrée, d'après les chiffres de l'OMS concernant l'année 2002, il y aurait 3 600 000 personnes, êtres humains, qui meurent chaque année des maladies hydriques. 19% d'enfants et d'adolescents de moins de 14 ans, donc je pense que ça c'est une catastrophe aussi, induite par l'eau, par les maladies hydriques. Je voudrais dire que ces chiffres sont importants pour lutter contre les catastrophes, mais aussi les conséquences de ces catastrophes. Et j'avoue que quand j'entends les Nations Unies déclarer que nous avons atteint avant l'heure les objectifs du millénaire en matière de développement, puisqu'il n'y aurait plus que 780 millions de personnes qui n'auraient pas accès à l'eau potable, je pense que d'autres études des Nations Unies prouvent que ce n'est pas vrai, que c'est plusieurs milliards de personnes qui n'ont pas accès à l'eau potable, selon les normes de l'OMS. Donc je pense qu'on a un vrai problème d'outils statistiques pour agir efficacement. Tout ça, évidemment, c'est des questions posées au panel. Je sais que ces questions sont compliquées et difficiles. Moi-même, je n'ai pas de solution toute faite. Je voudrais aussi souligner que, d'après l'OMS, en 2008, en tout cas, il était indiqué que pour atteindre ces fameux objectifs du millénaire en matière de développement, il faudrait consacrer 18 milliards de dollars chaque année. On en consacre la moitié, dont la moitié en dons et la moitié en prêts. Alors c'est aussi une question, comment va-t-on lutter contre cette catastrophe, des gens qui n'ont pas accès à l'eau potable, à l'assainissement, de celles et ceux qui en meurent, dans des situations de catastrophe notamment, mais pas seulement. Comment va-t-on faire? Et puis dernier point, dernier point, si vous voulez, je termine, j'en ai pour une seconde, c'est le problème de l'urgence et de l'infrastructure et du développement.
Would you make it shorter?
Je vous en prie. Je raccourcis, je voudrais simplement terminer par ce qu'a dit la commissaire Kristalina Georgieva en matière d'urgence de reconstruction et développement. Nous avons des structures de développement dans le monde, nous avons des structures d'urgence, et nous avons très peu de structures faisant le lien entre l'urgence et le développement dans les situations de sortie de crise. Et c'est franchement une pitié. Donc ce sont des questions qui sont posées amicalement, respectueusement, aux membres du panel sur ces sujets. Je voudrais dire qu'effectivement, l'accès à l'eau potable et à l'assainissement, comme le disait Benoît Mérival, c'est une affaire de santé publique qui concerne l'ensemble du monde. Merci.
Okay, the last two questions. So two gentlemen in the center, and then, we are moving to the next step.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Henrique Leite Chaves from Brasilia, University of Brasilia, Brazil. I made a question earlier to another session on emergencies, and the question I think remains. And the issue is that we cannot avoid disasters, but we can reduce risk. And the question is, for instance, we will give you an example. We have some flash floods, say in Phoenix, Arizona, and we have no one killed, or in Switzerland we can have a glacier melt and no one's killed after this flood comes. And in Brazil, a 20-year flood kills 200 people. And we have, say, in developing countries like Brazil, we have the technical solutions. Sometimes we have the money to make the planning and the enforcement and even the preparedness measures. And my question has to do with, do we have the political will? Our politicians are not liable for the consequences of avoided disasters. And my question is, should we change this a little bit and have the decision makers liable for mistakes or political inaction involving disasters and risk? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kos.
Thank you. I'm Koos Wierks, government of the Netherlands. A few quick remarks. We have had a lot of experience and problems with water in our country. First thing we learned always is prevention pays. We put our money in prevention, and that's on the long run much more economic than waiting for the disaster to strike. Bangkok costs $50 billion. If you put in a small amount to protect it, maybe you can prevent that sort of damages. Two, we learn from the past, but we don't want to learn by pain, not wait for the disaster hitting us. We learned from Louisiana. We looked at evacuation, we were there, we learned how they do it. We go to Japan and we learn how they educate children and people how to react on problems. So again, don't wait for the disaster, be in advance of it. Three, look forward. We have developed now a plan, not a blueprint, but an idea, a line of thinking for the next 100 years. It's nice to look back, but we know our population is growing, and that's not only with us, it's in the rest of the world. Climate is changing, river discharges are changing, a lot is happening. Be prepared, look forward, and don't look back. And the last remark, don't fight nature, try to work with the forces of nature. When we build a dike in our coastal area, it will stay forever, but the rest of the coastline will disappear. So we have processes, we work with nature. You can do that in many, many ways. Maybe we are all living on the wrong places. It's simple, but with a lot of floods, if you live higher up, and a couple of 100 years ago people knew that, you again prevent problems. So maybe work together with spatial planners. It's not only water, it's not only engineers, it's not only water management, it's about development, it's about spatial planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So is there anybody who wants to respond to these comments and questions? If you have. Yes, Chun-san.
My apology for joining late, but I really like to answer the question from Brazil that whether we can hold the politicians accountable. Actually, this is a topic we have thought about, and the basic fundamental reason why these things are happening is simply because politicians are not replaced, even in spite of the disasters, but they are replaced when the economy goes down like a minus 3% or 4%, then the politicians will be replaced by the voters, right? So it depends on it ultimately by the voters. If the voters doesn't change their voting, then how politicians can be held accountable. But I will just comment on another dimension there. This disaster issue is showing the gap between the gross pattern and the way we manage our economy and the surroundings we are surrounded by. So there's a gap. Then how we can close this gap? I think from ESCA, I'm from UNESCO. I'm the director for Environment Division of UNESCO, which is a regional commission of UN in Bangkok. We are promoting the idea of green growth since 2005. And the core of the green growth is changing the quantitative growth paradigm to qualitative growth paradigm. Then what is the difference? The difference is we are arguing that we have to factor in all those hidden costs of the current development pattern. Disaster is one. And there are many other hidden costs of current wrong development pattern. Like, for example, a simple example is traffic congestion we are suffering all the time in the downtown, everywhere. This is an example of the failure of taking into account that this law. Korea is losing 3% of GDP simply by traffic congestion. So, but this number is not factored into the GDP in the newspaper. So if we factor in all these kind of hidden losses from traffic congestion, from disaster, from many other issues, then in fact we end up with a negative net growth. So if we change the measuring, how we measure our real growth, then I think we can have a little bit different dimension of thinking, and then maybe we can change the way we operate our economy. So I would like to end my comment by saying that all these issues are ultimately the issue of between long-term benefit and the short-term cost. So all the issues, we know that there are long-term benefit, but we have a short-term cost. So how we can bridge this short-term and long-term? So this is a political will. And so in the end, we have to push the leadership because it cannot be solved by market because of this gap. So from ESCA, we are promoting the idea of green growth as a overarching frame where the growth paradigm is changed so that all these hidden costs are factored in, then we can have a maybe different strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we are turning to the next question after 1 hour and a half. So next slide, please. Next slide, Q3. Okay, so as you said, gentleman from Africa, what do we need to connect our global commitment into local actions? So this is a very fundamental question, which you might want to hear from the panelists. Actually, Dr. Hansen said that in coming July, that there will be for the first time in the history, there will be a General Assembly of the United Nations is discussing the water and disaster. This is a very significant event. So we are expecting a lot of commitments, national understanding, shared understanding, but how can we connect this commitment into the field? That is the question. So now I'd like to ask the few members to answer these questions. Maybe can we start, Mr. Alta?
Thank you very much. Let me really connect this to what just was discussed or questioned in the audience. I think this would be a very appropriate way to continue. You were saying, sir, that despite knowledge and even resources, there is no action. But about 1 row down and 12 seats to the right, from my point here, sits a gentleman who comes from the Netherlands and says 4 things, which all make sense, but they all cost money. And he said, we put the money where we need this and where it's useful to prevent. Now I would say there must be a process that allows us to deal with these responses through political action that makes so much sense when you hear them. So I would be inviting, I don't know whether I can do this yet, when I can return this to the audience, but I would really very much like to hear a bit about what makes those decisions possible in the Netherlands that seem to be forward-looking for 100 years and apparently pretty successful because they manage well. I remember here on Monday, we had one of the gentlemen, the commissioner of the Delta plan of the Netherlands with us, Mr. Kuyken. And he had a very, very interesting way to discuss how the decisions to make proposals to the government are taken. And I was quite struck by the fact that the key issue was transparency. You would let people come forward, and not just some. There's a plan, there's an idea, but it is consulted in an extremely open and transparent way. And what does that mean? It means that voices of very different interests and concerns and communities apparently are brought forward. But I'm interpreting now what I have heard, sir, and maybe you know much better what it actually is. But still, I believe that we should not underestimate some basic principles of what I call a good governance system. Good governance means that you have to have participation. Good governance means also that you have to have transparency, not just in the final decision-making and finally making politicians sort of suffer. No, inform them, actually. I think it wouldn't hurt, you know, when politicians would be confronted with views from very different sorts of thinking, of walks of life, of degrees of being concerned, and by that, being exposed to this kind of diversity. But in the end, I would also say it's a question of accountability. And political decision-making is carried out on the basis of probably listening, taking views, and take decisions. And whether they always are right decisions, that's sometimes very much in the eye of the beholder. But it is certainly important that accountability mechanisms exist that allows to make sure that people can determine why specific actions are taken. And let me just make one additional comment. I think we have seen that not just disasters, I mean natural disasters, we have also seen, especially in the last important, large economic and financial crisis, we have seen that central governments tried to manage a risky situation. They tried to manage a risky situation. They did probably, and I think we should assume that, the best they thought they can do. But when you look at the experience of that kind of risk management that took place, when you look at it in hindsight, which we have done, you realize that some of this didn't work because, for example, local communities were not prepared for that sort of rapid action, investment, taking decisions, deploying people. So what I'm saying here is, if we want to connect, we should make sure that these gaps that we talk about, gaps of capacity, gaps of communications, but also gaps of coordination are addressed and attacked. It's not necessarily bad will, it's just not knowing where those gaps exist. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jose Luisa.
Just very briefly, and taking from where you live it, using the example, why that tolerance, in part, is because of the natural aspects of what we are dealing with. It's like when you deal with road safety, when we were calling this road accidents, the word accident, well, means you have to tolerate that. This is what we have to change. You see accountability, and they resign when there is a big event, a big disaster, and the response is very poor. Clear accountability there. But what about these 200 people that were affected? Well, you know that the problem was that they were living in the wrong place. What about the following? Through this initiative that we are pushing in learning from each other, open data, making everyone understand where they are, ensuring that, for example, countries develop in their strategies, in the plans, risk-based land use planning, that people will understand that they are living in a risky situation, And if the government doesn't help, doesn't act, then the government is also accountable. This is how we can put pressure to reach the level of accountability that you need for the, not the big disasters, but the ones that are creeping and then 200 here, 200 there, and can be also prevented.
Thank you, Jacqueline-san.
Thank you. When I look at the question of what do we need to connect with global national commitment with local, I'm using your microphone, is that okay?
It's working.
Oh, okay. One of the things that really has come up again and again this past few days is I haven't seen too many issues where I think everyone is really on the same side of the table, where there's no one who's saying we shouldn't do the risk management. There's no one who's saying we shouldn't prepare for the disaster. There's no one who's saying we shouldn't do the consultation with the local communities. We're actually all pushing in the same direction. So then you say, then what are the issues here? What is it that's not pushing through to more effective change? And I'd say first response to that is, well, actually there has been effective change. We've seen a massive change in actually, like I said earlier, how many people survived disasters who didn't 10 years ago. And it's a good thing because we're having more disasters. But that doesn't mean we can't do it better. And I'm thinking if you look down at the local level, what I've seen happening is sometimes with all the goodwill, and then I'll tell you, the NGOs, there'll be 150 of them working in disaster areas. And then you'll have the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, you'll have the UN, you'll have a number of agencies. And sometimes the local community will start their own actions because they're so fed up with waiting for the international players and the other people to coordinate. Part of this is the issue of institutions. At the local level, it's very, very difficult to build the kind of institutions that will be resilient in a disaster situation. It's just very difficult. It will take a long time. It will take a long time, and I'm thinking, I keep thinking the Solomon Islands, an outer island. You know, it'll just take a lot of effort, a lot of resources. We provide technical assistance for exactly these kind of things, for the drilling of people of what to do during a disaster. So I'd have to say there's no easy answer, and there's no adversarial position. We are all moving in this direction, but we'll just get better.
Thank you. Mr. Jello just showed.
Thank you. I was listening to the comments from the room, and it is true that in some areas there is a serious challenge in connecting. I'm going specifically back to the question you were asking, how to connect global, national commitment with local action. Sometimes there are real challenges, but I would not like to give the impression either that there is no connection, because in many cases there are actually good connection with that, and local community are very much involved in disaster prevention, and we have some real success stories, including in some of the least developed countries. And this is why, as you just said, the number of life loss has decreased dramatically. A sort of exemplary model of that is what has happened in Bangladesh with the, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. So the point I would like to make here is that the challenge is much more, is of a greater order of magnitude when we have disasters which happen very rarely. If a country is hit every year by a tropical cyclone, they know what to do. It's very easy to connect that. The local people know what to do, to the point that to take Mauritius, when there was the Indian Ocean tsunami. Mauritius was also hit by the tsunami. But because they were so well prepared for hurricanes, for tropical cyclone, that the warning they got from observing the tsunami wave in the Rodriguez Island gave it enough warning. People knew exactly what to do, no life loss in Mauritius. But some other country, it's much more challenging. Someone mentioned the storm surge in Myanmar. Now, you can argue about what happened in Myanmar, but what you have to know, and not many people know that, the warnings were very good.
The warnings for the hurricane were good. The warnings for the storm surge were good. The challenge is that, one of the big challenges, that this tropical cyclone trajectory had a course which was very unusual. Actually, it was not unusual. We couldn't find any example in our archives of a similar course. It's very difficult to prepare well for something which has never happened. But, and I could give other examples of extreme things. So if something happened every 10, 20, or with irregular frequency, I've been involved in operational disaster prevention myself. It's very difficult to maintain in operation a system which will be used maybe once every 200 years. If you know how to do it, please, I would like to learn from this best practice. It is a challenge. And so therefore, we have also, and this is, I'm back to my previous point, which maybe was, I wanted to make as a little bit of a thought-provoking statement. We can, in some cases, anticipate. Let me give one last example. The heat wave which hit Russia about a year and a half ago was not only exceptional. It was not, if you have a normal curve, it was not one standard deviation. Maybe it was 5, 6 standard deviation out. So no record in history. So past statistics cannot help us for that one. However, what can help us is that we are now capable of making, and they are getting better and better, seasonal forecasts on longer time scale, which will not tell you it will happen, but which are already telling you there's a risk of that happening. And based on that risk, decision can be made. And this is now the challenge. Back to the question, at the global level, government can make, 30 seconds. Government can integrate uncertainty in their decision making at the global level. It's much more challenging for the local farmer to integrate uncertainty. And I think this is a point we have to address. Thank you. Sorry for being too long.
Helena-san, do you have a short comment or not? This is the last comment.
On the global national commitment combined with local actions, I repeat what I said before. It's to open, and I agree with the accountability and the space, enabling space for having, we cannot negotiate and agree on global and national commitment without local participation. Communities is a very wide word. Community is everybody in every country, in every neighborhood. But there are structured way of also including local responsibilities, and that's through the different local government structures, and that is not happening everywhere. And we have seen this in taking the Hyogo Framework for Action to a local level is the big challenge now, and we are trying to do that. We have worked with NGOs and civil society and community-based grassroots organization for many years, but it doesn't really click because everybody is limited in but now we are trying to, we have a big campaign, as Madame Mutagama was referring to the WASH campaign. We have now a campaign, we call it Making Cities Resilient. But the basis for the campaign is to having local government leaders and city councils and districts and barangays and puroks and whatever they are called to get the voice to the government and use the resources as well, because in the bottom line is local action can only happen with resources as well. It's easy to say that we have a policy, and there is a decentralized responsibility, but with no resources, you cannot actually act on it. So, and there comes accountability and transparency of application of those resources. And finally, local action and national commitment, it's not only about technology and about big investments. It also needs big investments and technology, but there is a lot of, we had a conversation just before lunch in one of the sessions. Pakistan was saying that it's really about people also, and we cannot forget about this. It's people's knowledge, it's indigenous knowledge, it's historic memory of people who live in an area that is being lost in technology somehow in some countries. And I think that that is an important learning when it comes to local action, also informing national and global commitments. It's not only one way, it's two-way, bottom-up as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next questions. Q4. And this is the last question. Do you agree that water and disaster should be mainstreamed locally and nationally? If yes, I think it is yes. Do you have any suggestions on actions to mainstream water and disaster at local and national levels? So first, Mr. Sato, please.
水と災害の取り組みを強化すると、あるいは主流化するということに私は賛成します。 水と災害管理の充実、これは先ほどどなたかお話になったように、第一義的には各国あるいは各地域が行うべき、自ら行うべきことであるというのは異論がないところですが、一方で被害が発生しにくい地域あるいは国づくり、あるいは災害が発生したとしても被害を最小限にとどめるような行動、こういうためには国際的な協力というのは必要不可欠であろうと考えております。昨年のタイの洪水の際にも我が国では初めて高性能で機動力のある排水ポンプ車、おそらく世界には日本しか持ってない車だと思いますが、これを派遣しましてタイの洪水の排水に従事したと、こういう経験も踏まえると、国と国との絆を強化しまして、共に発展するという新しい国際貢献のモデルというものを私ども求めていきたいと。具体的には、我が国の総合力を生かした言葉、防災パッケージと名付けておりますが、パッケージの提供による協力を今後実施していく用意がございます。具体的にこの防災パッケージのコンセプトは、私ども今3つを考えております。一つは先ほどお話ございました防災と持続可能な成長あるいは開発をパッケージで考えるという取り組みです。防災を推進し、安全な地域あるいは国土を作るということが結果的に持続可能な成長にもつながると、こういう観点で全体の防災の考え方を整理していきたいと。最近の世銀の報告書では、防災への投資が経済的に有効であると、こういうようなご報告もあるように聞いております。このような考え方が一つのパッケージとして提示していきたいと。2つ目は、災害の各局面、災害予防、普段からのこの予防の取り組み、あるいは災害が起こる直前の予報、情報、あるいは事前の準備、あるいは災害の最中の応急の対応、そして災害が受けた後の復旧・復興、あらゆる段階での対策をパッケージで考えておくべきであろうというふうに考えております。3つ目は、先ほど冒頭にもご紹介したハード・ソフト対策を各々の地域の条件において適切に決め合わせられるような、そういうパッケージ、これが必要であろうと。この取り組み全体には、当然のことながら過去の教訓に基づくもの、そしてパッケージを進めるためには、国、地域、あるいは民間、あるいは学識経験者、こういう方々の全体の協力が必要であろうというふうに考えております。特に地域の条件に合わせた地域が選択できる枠組みというのを整えていきたいというふうに考えております。水災害の被災国からの、あるいは地域からの要望に応えるような、このような防災パッケージの提供について、国際社会とともに協力しながら進めていきたいと、このように考えております。
Thank you very much, Mr. Sato. This is a very concrete and practical proposal and examples based on the very recent experience of the tsunami last year. So the International Committee will really, really appreciate it. So, Milber-san, do you have any comments?
Oui, c'est vrai que nous sommes en train de parler d'un contexte de réduction des risques dans une situation où nous avons affaire à un désastre permanent. Les réalités du manque d'accès à l'eau et de l'assainissement, nous le savons, pour beaucoup de pays, c'est un désastre permanent. Donc là, nous parlons d'une réduction du désastre parce qu'un événement inattendu arrive dans des situations qui sont déjà un désastre. Nous sommes d'accord. Pas dans tous les pays, fort heureusement, puisqu'il y a des pays qui sont mieux armés, dans ceux engagés à Yogo, mais effectivement, il y a cette double capacité. Donc, ça passe, pour répondre à cette question, sur, comme ça a été évoqué, et comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, mais rapidement, bien sûr, par les communautés locales. Ça, le départ, il est là. Et qu'est-ce que l'on voit? On voit qu'un des enjeux, je ne sais pas si on peut le changer, cette tendance, mais une des données que nous avons, que nous donnent les experts, c'est que la croissance démographique va se faire à 80% dans les villes. Et dans les villes qui sont fragiles au niveau de l'eau et de l'assainissement, que nous connaissons, il y a des quartiers formels, des quartiers informels. L'accès au foncier est régulé ou n'est pas régulé. Et d'ailleurs, il y a pour beaucoup de populations une pénalité de pauvreté, puisque l'on sait que dans ces villes-là, plus une personne est pauvre, plus l'accès aux services essentiels est cher. Donc elle est par rapport à des riches qui peuvent avoir l'eau du robinet dans une grande mégapole. Donc il y a ce contexte de départ dans la réduction des risques, et par rapport aux désastres, je dirais, permanents que nous connaissons et pour lesquels nous devons collaborer, acteurs du développement, acteurs de l'urgence, puisque c'est aussi le sujet de cette discussion. Bien entendu, le point de départ, ce sont les communautés, parce que c'est elles qui vont devoir se prémunir ou pas. Et là, la situation est complexe parce qu'on touche à l'accès à la ressource en temps normal ou pas, aux enjeux de l'assainissement, de la santé publique. Et effectivement, il y a, je dirais, un enjeu à travers ce contexte que nous ne soyons pas en train de faire des facteurs de disparité, c'est-à-dire qu'on est d'un côté des grandes réponses de disaster risk reduction et en même temps des pays qui n'ont, parce que structurellement partant de très loin, et étant dans ce désastre permanent entre guillemets, voilà, où se surajoutent. C'est pour tenir compte des leçons du passé, les comparatifs des pays que nous avons des leçons du passé. Donc c'est un enjeu et ça part des communautés qui doivent effectivement s'approprier des réponses, être formées, préparées à cela avec des soutiens. Mais comme on le voit, tout ne passe bien sûr pas par le technologique, par l'anticipation de cyclones, ça passe aussi par une activité sociale, économique dans les pays. Et ça, c'est beaucoup plus compliqué, surtout que d'un pays à l'autre, les contextes sont différents. Mais on a un enjeu global par rapport à ça.
Thank you very much. So, Minister Mutabanga, your floor is yours. And yours is the last comment on this question. And the last of this entire discussion.
Thank you very much. Yes, I want to say it's very important that we mainstream the disaster program both locally, nationally, and I also want to add internationally. One thing that nationally we need to mainstream it so that everybody, every sector is prepared for a disaster which may occur at any time. That means we have to plan for it, we have to budget for it, and we have to prepare our communities to give them enough information so that they are also aware and they can take decisions other than when the danger is approaching. My friend from the World Bank said, call it transparency and accountability. I think we owe it to the people so that they know that they can take a decision at the right time. We are also thinking that we should mainstream because of resilience. You talked about resilience, Japan has talked about resilience, and Africa is talking about resilience. And of course, Africa is more prone to the disaster because they don't have the capacity and the financial power. But at the same time, we cannot surrender. So I think we really need to factor in our activities the resilience aspect of it. We talk about food security. A country like Uganda definitely grows sufficient food to feed itself. But there are times when we find we don't have enough and we have got to rely on one food program. So I think local governments can actually build food security resilience within themselves, within their localities. And at the national level, we should re-establish the food store that we used to have before so that we don't really have to wait for one food program or any other NGOs to come and support us when we have a disaster somewhere in the country. I'm also looking at building or mainstreaming the activities of disaster preparedness, especially in the procurement. I want to say when we had a disaster in Uganda in 2010, And my ministry was supposed to purchase toilets and water tanks for the people who had been affected. Because of the bureaucracy within the system, I had to go through the process of 60 days of procurement. And by the time I got the tanks and toilets, the disaster was gone and people were already back. So I think we were unable to respond to the situation because of the bureaucracy. So I think we can skip some of these and justify being able to respond by mainstreaming our activities. And finally, I also want to say that we also need to look at the national budgets. Definitely looking at my own budget, especially the water sector, which keeps dwindling. I think now I'm down by 2%. It is unlikely that if a disaster struck today, I will be able to respond effectively. And that means that we really have to call on our development partners to look at the possibility of helping us to budget so that we don't have to face the danger, the forces of disaster if we had sufficient funds. For example, in Karamoja, 2 years ago, we had disaster. We saw it roaming because there was no food. And I remember the Prime Minister coming to Cabinet and saying, you know, we need so much billions to respond to a crisis. But I said, I need so much billions to prepare for the next disaster. But because there was no money, we looked around for the disaster that was there, and we didn't have money for me to buy machines so that I can create reservoirs. The following day, we had the same problem. So I think we need to be able to have sufficient budget to prepare to counter rather than money to respond to the budget, to the crisis. And I think that is something that we have got to mainstream, not only in our national budgets, but also internationally, so that when we present our budgets to you, the World Bank, our big brother, so that you also look out for that and say, how are you prepared to respond to this kind of situation? Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.